God, it's working. Amazing.
It is. Perfect.
Fabulous.
Here we are.
All right, well, we're going to pretend that we're just starting for the first time then.
Okay.
So, yes, we are a part... Oh, look at Richard hung out.
Hey, Richard.
Of course. Being a part of nature, not apart from it. And this whole notion of living an organic life. And so we're kind of blending, both of our, because, my main message to people is this trust of your body, this trust of the organic, innate functions of your body, and that there is a reason that your body does what it does. And so when you're learning to kind of navigate in this world of, okay, well, I want to get what I want. I want things to be the way that I want them to be. In our society, it seems like we've got to go against nature. Like we've got to go against our own nature. Like in order to get what I want, I have to do things that feel bad to me for some of the time. I've got to work and do a certain amount of stuff that I don't like in order to get a reward that I do like. And sometimes I've got to do things to my body that I don't like in order to get something that I do like. That is like all of society. You work, you go to work, and you don't like it, but you like money to take care of your family and have fun on the weekends, and so you do that. You don't like to work out, you don't enjoy exercise, but, people say you're going to get this or that disease, your body's going to be fat if you don't work out, so you do all of this stuff. You do the stuff you don't like so that there's a little bit of a reward on the back end. And that thinking, that mentality is what our entire societal structure is made up of, is that sometimes you got to take the bitter pill, swallow the medicine, you've just got to do this stuff that you don't like in order to eke out a little bit of good feeling, happiness, good result, whatever it is that you are after. And that is a very much an ego, human, mental construction. And when you think of us at this far end of a very long evolutionary process, when you look around in nature, we were driving around today, and Steve, we were talking about this idea of like, look around. Was this like all of this stuff, these things that sprout up and come, was there a lot of like, oh, I hate this. This is so terrible that I have to grow here, that I've got to do this. It's like when you look at nature, it all just seems so effortless. So how can nature seem so effortless? But here we are, a part of nature. This like long evolutionary process got us to this point. But now all of a sudden we have to not enjoy ourselves and not enjoy the process and actually work against the process. And we think the process is what's messed up and not us. And so talking about this different mentality, whether you're looking at your physical health in your body, learning about the 5 biological laws of nature, whether you're working with the law of attraction and trying to figure out how to get more of what you want out of your life without this struggle, without this toil, without this fight, without this doing a lot of crap that you don't like to do, and figuring out, is there a way to figure this out with this mind that seems so drawn to want to do things or have to do things it doesn't like to do to get results.
It seems to me that this whole thing, this whole confusion, this whole sort of adversarial stance that we take towards us, or the we that we suppose ourselves to be, and the rest of all that is that nature, that the universe, that the world is arranged in such a way, that nature is arranged in such a way that nature sometimes has to be, the nature that we are, has to be sort of against itself, the rest of nature, in order to get that which nature itself desires. And that's kind of an interesting thing, and it's sort of a strange assumption to make in a way, that there must be adversity on the way to the getting, the attracting, the experiencing of what it is that you're wanting. And I think that when forcing, so when you force things, you tend to, the experiential essence of that, which is likened to itself, is drawn. So the more you force things, the more you've been persuaded that forcing, that efforting is the way to make things happen in the world, the more you buy into that worldview, the more you kind of think and feel and vibrate and offer in kind of harmony with that worldview, the more you attract to yourself experiences that tend to confirm that that's right. The more you attract to yourself intractable scenarios where you've got to just go, and you've got to come up against it, and you've got to go like this, and blood out of a turnip and all this different stuff. And understanding, though, that you say, but it's true, don't you see? I've got this whole life experience that proves it. And the thing is, it is true for you, if it's true for you. And if it's true for you, it's true for you because you believed in a way that will cause you really to manifest that experience. And then someone's going to say, well, you can't invalidate my whole life by just saying it only happened because I believed it. And it's not just you, right, who has only created the life that you have because of your belief. It is everyone. Everyone is living a life really that is a manifestation experientially of the beliefs that they've been holding active in their vibration, whether they knew about it or not. And when you recognize that, you give yourself really the freedom. You give yourself the freedom to start to say, well, am I really thinking that way? Because I now am so kind of unperturbed by having something pointed out to me that I'm doing that's kind of not working for me or producing a result that because I'm so fixated on what I want, not because I'm so smart or so virtuous or whatever, but because someone got through to me, right, the value of evaluating information based on what can I get out of this, how can I benefit this, given this, what do I want? Given the fact that this new perspective has been kind of brought to my attention, how can I use this to get those things, those intentions that I already have active? And so once you are free really to relate to information in that way, you're free to hear something like, listen, a belief about the necessity of efforting will attract to you a life experience that confirms your belief in the necessity of efforting. Then you say, oh, no wonder. I've got this lifetime of evidence that life is hard and making money is hard and having a happy family is hard. And the fact that I have all of that evidence means nothing whatsoever other than the fact that my beliefs have acted as a magnet for that evidence. And as I begin to experiment and to play and to allow myself to start believing something new and different, I can start attracting new and different evidence into my life experience in the form of a new and different life experience that I'm going to create for myself.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of see what we consider to be outliers. In as far as normal experience goes. So like a couple examples just came to mind, like an outlier, like you see these like kids, like 12, 15, 17, 18-year-old kids, like literally making millions of dollars on YouTube, like making ridiculous jokes, playing video games and filming themselves and being on YouTube and literally making millions of dollars.
I had 2 out of those 3 for years, and I was just missing the filming part.
They do not work hard. They have tons of fun. They do exactly what they want, and somehow they've attracted and have created more money and abundance than most people will ever see in their lives. You know? And so did they cheat? Did they break the rules? Did they just get lucky? Like what happened there? And then look at something like what we look at as spontaneous remission. Oh, this person, they had this cancer and we thought it was really bad and we were pretty sure it was going to kill them, but it went away. How do you explain these things? And that's the thing is we just write them off. Like we hear about these things and because our belief system is so entrenched or so just like one way of looking at it, we hear about things like this and we don't really think to look any further into it. We don't think that that's possible for us, possible for anyone. We don't even think it really can be explained a lot of times.
It's true. It can't be explained by us given the model for explaining reality that we presently have. And that what she was just describing there, that whole thing, that something happens and it's maybe a wonderful thing, but it's inconsistent with our beliefs. And therefore we kind of just sort of, sometimes that happens, but it doesn't happen for everyone. And that is belief in action. That is the sort of magnetic and repulsive power of your beliefs being demonstrated right there. Because if something happens and it's consistent with what I believe about reality, well, that's just evidence that reality and what I believe about it is absolutely so. If something happens and it's like a smack in the face refutation of what I believe about reality, it's the exception that proves the rule. Oh, well, that's just sometimes weird stuff just happens. Well, weird stuff. The only reason these things seem weird to us is because we don't have a model for understanding reality that adequately takes into account the subtle nuances and differences that allow for these different things to be happening. And so we say, well, we don't know what it is, but if we did know what it is, we would know that it was blank, or it was had to do the genetics, or it was just a random kind of a thing. That's really funny, though, and that's we get so attached to these models. In many cases, doctors are so attached to their understanding of health and healing and sickness and remission and all this different stuff. Spontaneous remission is almost an embarrassment because it points to the inadequacy or it points to the incompleteness of the model that we have for understanding health in general or of a specific illness. And that for people, and this is too just coming from also a kind of a Christian or a Western background where we believe that sort of understanding that the universe is fixed, it's finished, it's done, it's established, it's complete, all we've got to do is understand it. And if that's true, well then it's very embarrassing for us to be in a situation where we can't quite explain something that's happening right in front of our face. I mean, it's one thing not to be able to explain quantum physics, but it's quite another to not be able to explain why someone with a stage 4 cancer all of a sudden is totally better, and it totally contradicts everything that we know about that. That's embarrassing to us because we could know it and we don't. But when you recognize really that this universe is constantly expanding, it's constantly unfolding, things are constantly developing, and really it's about keeping pace with those changes. When you're trying to build a rigid model that can explain for all time why this happens the way it does and never happens any differently, you're eternally frustrated. And when your main objective is not being embarrassed by having the model that you are putting forward as part of your, really, the reason for your authority, you don't want to have that rejected. You don't have it undermined. You don't have any evidence whatsoever that it's not true. And it's not that anyone sits down but they just become emotionally attached to it. We all do this in some way. We become attached to our model of reality. We start to value and prize that model over the fact of reality itself, even when that model is maybe not serving us. And so it's a very interesting thing. This is when we resent the outliers instead of saying, what are they doing that I could be doing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? How are they because we can't conceive that there's something about them and about what they're doing or about what their energy is, what their vibration is that could be modeled by other people. Well, because then it opens up a whole can of worms, doesn't it? We got to explain how to do this thing. We got to find out how to do this thing. And that just complicates a lot of things endlessly. But it also opens the door to a lot of freedom.
Yeah, like I've gotten a few like kind of inflammatory responses to some of my posts regarding German New Medicine and the 5 biological laws, because it's such a model changer. It's such a paradigm shifting viewpoint that it kind of, some people, depending on how, and it's a lack of curiosity, I think, is a big thing. Is like we stop being curious, like you said, like we stop saying, well, what did that person do, or what is it that you're trying to say? What is it that you're trying to, I'm curious about this. But a lot of people, they'll hear certain things and they won't even kind of look into it because their model just doesn't allow them to even go outside of that. So like to tell someone, okay, cancer may not be what you think it is. It may not be an error, a mistake, but people will automatically, kind of have their life references for it of, maybe it affecting a family member or something. And instead of being curious about, okay, well, maybe there is a different explanation, some people just aren't comfortable expanding their worldview.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that people oftentimes, they're not only not comfortable sort of expanding their view, which is fine. I mean, everyone's where they are and they're doing their thing, and that's okay. But a lot of people, when they don't have, and I was once this way, when you don't have the ability to relate to information, it is bothersome to you that there would be something outside of your realm of consideration, that it even exists. You don't even like the fact that there's some school of thought that contradicts you in this profound, basic way. It troubles you, it unsettles you, because there is some kind of comfort to be had, again, in that, well, we don't know what to do about this bad situation, but we do know it's a bad situation. Absolutely, we know it's a terrible situation. We know certain things, we know who the enemy is. We know what the problem is. And we're in the process of eradicating, waging war, fighting against it, pushing against it, using, all these kind of chemical weapons and things that are really, I think, a lot of them, right, developed actually from actual warfare. And so there are people who are tremendously triggered by the very notion. It's not as if you're going around sort of like shoving this stuff into people's, world and saying, hey, you must believe all this stuff. People sometimes are even just, they're pushed over their threshold by a mere awareness of the fact that there are fundamentally contradicting options, evidences out there. And I think that that's a sad thing. I think that it's a sad thing not because it prevents them from looking into your information, although that is too bad, but really fundamentally it's a sad thing because everyone, I think, is deserving of the ability to have the freedom to go out and swim in the sea of information, swim in the sea and this diversity of viewpoints and of perspectives, and to pick and choose what they want, and to kind of go on that kind of like berry picking adventure of all the different options and things that are available to them, types of personality, schools of, you know, healing and health and all this different stuff, different ideas, and not be kind of mortified when you come across those that aren't really consistent with you know, they don't feel good to you. To be able to look on something and say, you know, that just doesn't really resonate with me, it doesn't sound right to me right now, I'm going to pass that by. I think that is a skill that really everyone sort of deserves to have, not so that they won't bother us, although it would be nice, you know, but it's so that it's, you know, so that you're able to kind of go out into the wide world of information, be on this leading edge of thought where all these different, I mean, just this diversity is kind of the basis of the expansion of everything. And to be able to come into contact with things that aren't pleasing to you and to not be unduly perturbed by those things, to be able just to kind of use that as a reference point really for more of what you want. And that's, I mean, that freedom really gives you the ability to interface with information.
Yeah, it's like a post I made yesterday, like you should date your beliefs and not marry them, because if you like marry
That's
beliefs, if you just like hold your breath, you say, this is it, this is what I'm going to believe, and that is that I'm going to be monogamous with this belief, and I'm not even going to flirt. I'm not going to look at any other beliefs because that is not a comfortable thing to do, and I don't want to cheat on these beliefs, so I can't even, you like literally stop looking at anything else. And this is really what a lot of people in the camp of the science is settled have done, you know, and they think the science is settled about everything, about vaccines, about cancer. It's like they see some evidence that seems to confirm these things that they, you know, or people that they trust give them this information, and they say, okay, well that's just it. You can't even question that. You can't even question vaccines. You can't even question that cancer is a bad thing. I mean, think about how it, from the standard viewpoint, to question that cancer is a bad thing, and for someone to come along and say, you know what, cancer actually is not a bad thing. It's a program of nature, and there's a reason that it's there. It's just been misunderstood. Say, you know, and
I think the key distinction there too is I mean, there's no question that people's experience of these chronic illnesses, cancer included, can be extremely awful, and that they can't actually end in someone dying. There's no questioning that. It's about a specific perspective on exactly where the problem is and on what the nature of the problem is, and it's about whether or not the actual illness itself is, where does the mistake begin, or the error begin, or the accident begin, and to what extent is it an adaptive response to something that's going on. And that's a question that is profoundly relevant to ask, and that's a question that can be asked without in any way negating or diminishing or minimizing or disregarding or being unempathetic to the experiences of individuals who have gone through the illness and also the treatments that are associated with it. And that's another hugely relevant thing there too. A lot of the negative experiences that are associated with illness in general, with cancer in particular, are associated with the standard treatment, which is something that this perspective in a way is kind of seeking to possibly look in different directions for. And so very often, it's kind of an ironic thing, I've seen this, is that people get angry at you for even questioning sort of the nature of cancer because of the negative experience people have had with cancer, because largely of the treatments of the illness itself, which is something that you're sort of kind of pushing against. And so again, it is just that perspective thing, and that ability again to interface with or to come into contact with information that is unfamiliar to you, that might even cause you to feel uncomfortable, and to know that the feeling of discomfort that you're feeling is because the information really profoundly and deeply contradicts your present map or model or understanding of reality. Then all of a sudden, it's not that you're wrong to feel kind of taken aback or troubled, or oh man, this is kind of wild and wacky and out there. It's not that that's a wrong thing. It's that when you understand what that means, it doesn't mean that person's evil. It doesn't necessarily mean that person's kind of, you know, assaulting you with a new paradigm or belief system. It just means you're coming into contact with territory that your map doesn't really have listed on there. It has not prepared you to come into contact with. I think the other thing too that is like really relevant here is kind of the way people operate with their beliefs and with information. So often, we live in a culture, we live in a world where belief very often is almost used as a weapon, which is to say, I've got this set of beliefs, and here I come, and you better get ready, because I've got these beliefs, and I'm going to wield them. I'm basically going to beat you into submission. I'm going to present evidence to you, and I'm going to argue with you, and I'm going to debate with you, and I'm essentially going to coerce you into believing the things that I believe. And that's how a lot of people, maybe they don't think that way, but they really kind of behave that way and act that way. I mean, if you look at interactions on Facebook, if you look at political debates and stuff like that, even in the realm of science, there's a lot of that goes on where beliefs are almost like rhetorical devices that are designed to win arguments and win debates and win exchanges. And like when we're presenting information to people, the way that we kind of operate, the way that we use beliefs is we say, listen, here's a different way of thinking about this stuff, and you might find it useful. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be useful or right or appropriate or perfect for everybody at every time. But it's and that just to me just seems so obvious. But I think that because of the fact that many people have had personal experiences of having beliefs foisted upon them. So someone comes and says, I think differently than you. And that is because of personal experience so synonymous with having that person basically try to force you into a marriage with those beliefs too, that we can kind of have our guard up sometimes. And if someone's presenting something that sounds like a contradictory belief, we almost are like bracing ourselves for like, okay, here comes the assault. Here comes the thing they're going to try to make me believe. I better be ready to kind of fend that off. And that's just never been our intention in anything. And I think that kind of making that clear and prefacing that and being aware, I guess, of the need for that kind of preface is really useful, because we're living in a world where I think a lot of people relate to beliefs differently than we do, and perhaps differently than you do. And if you've ever gotten kind of a strong reaction from somebody, it may not be that they're trying to encroach upon your right to believe something different or to express that belief. It may be that, their personal experience has been someone believes something different than you. They're probably, getting ready to try to make you believe that thing too, rather than offering it to you as a tool or as something that you might use as a different lens or a different kind of filter through which to view and to react and respond to reality.
Yeah, I think it's a really wonderful way of just self-understanding and self-knowledge to kind of learn about yourself when you come up against information that you don't agree with. And I've actually, because I used to be a person, in case for those of you who probably don't know, I was very much non-flexible in any of my beliefs at all whatsoever. Like extremely dogmatic background, extremely just kind of religious thinking, very strict in the way, like I did not go outside of my realm. And when I observed things outside of my realm, I got very uncomfortable, very just like truly just in rage. I just, this, but as I've kind of grown personally and in just kind of my exploration of my belief system and kind of like this, like what makes me me, and that's what we teach in our Ever Better Life online course, is kind of like this deep self-understanding, like how do I do this experience called Melissa? How do I experience you and different beliefs and different approaches, and how do I create that inner experience? And as I've gotten better and better at it, I actually, when I see someone that's written something that I do not agree with, that my beliefs currently do not line up with, I like to watch that feeling. Like, ooh, okay, hold on. Let me figure out, how am I doing this? Like, where is this feeling? What does it feel like? Is it anger? And it's right in here. And okay, so what is that feeling doing? And what is it telling me? What does this tell me about this situation, about myself? And it's such a powerful thing to be able to observe in yourself and to watch in yourself, say, ooh, okay. And then you can, instead of like blowing up and seeing something on Facebook and saying, I have to say something, and you say something and then you kind of cause this thing, but then you can look back on it and say, oh yeah, well I can see, when you get that bigger perspective, it's like in that moment, try to find that perspective, try to see, why do I feel this way? Where do I feel it? Why do I feel like so mad? Why do I feel so worked up in this moment? And you will learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, having and that's a skill, and that's the thing, is that having that ability to come into contact with that information.
Thanks, Richard. I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, it's strange that
it turned on me.
It just kind of did it. It turned on you.
The camera turned on me.
But yeah, that's one of those things, and just understanding kind of the nature of belief. And I know I used to be bound by the things that I believed, and I used to be. And so if something upset me, that was just the way that it was. And so you get a nice close up of the yoga block there. You got a yoga block propping the phone up, and that's what you just saw. And I just, basically my beliefs were using me instead of me using the beliefs. And imagine, I mean, it's such an inversion, really, of the way they're supposed to operate and the way it's supposed to work. Really, I'm kind of at option. Same thing with opinions. I posted something yesterday about how, like, very useful questions I've been asking myself recently. What are the vibrational consequences of holding this opinion? What opinion? Well, an opinion about myself, an opinion about the world, an opinion about another person, an opinion about a comment that I saw that was stupid on Facebook. I mean, this stuff's flooding into my consciousness. And if I'm not careful about what I'm looking at, if I'm not paying attention, if I'm not conscious of what I'm looking at, I'll find myself forming opinions about the fact that somebody named Cam Newton, who I don't even know who he is, I kind of do, he plays sports, said something about women talking about sport. And all of a sudden, there's this opinion in my vibration. And I don't, like, care about sports. I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know anything about who he was speaking to. But I've got this opinion now all of a sudden. And it's an interesting thing to kind of watch. And I'm thinking to myself, why do I have, like, the little kind of like a nascent belief on this topic kind of forming here? Why do I find myself kind of in the background of my mind trying to decide whether or not what he said was bad or not, or appropriate or not? And this is just something showing up in my trending feed, right? I could not be less concerned with this. And yet, I got this automatic default mechanism, right, of making these decisions about whether this is relevant to me or important to me, or what do you think about this? And it's so interesting to kind of step back and to say, well, see, that question, what do you think about this, presupposes that you think something about it. And that is a tremendously presumptuous thing, because you've also got the whole infinite universe of options that exist in the realm of not thinking anything about it whatsoever, and all the things that you could be thinking instead. And that's hugely relevant. So I think we get oftentimes, like with social media, especially, inundated with this information. And that would include information coming from us. You know, it's like, if it doesn't feel good to think about this stuff, if it doesn't feel good to decide what you think about it, well, just think nothing of it. Literally, think nothing of it and think about something that feels better to you. Because that's an option that you have. And for me, being cognizant of that and aware of the fact that it's not just how I feel about it. It's not just what I think about it. It's what I think about. Not just what I think about, but the fact that I'm thinking about it, right? The topics, the subjects that are kind of active in my awareness. And that it's my job, really, to kind of curate that consciousness and to make sure that the things that I'm thinking about, if they're worth thinking about, they're worth thinking about in a way that feel good to me. And if I am not willing to kind of do the work or do the playing to find a way of thinking about it that feels good to me, well, then it's not worth thinking about. It'd be better just to kind of clear things out and just listen to the birds or something like that. And that's just a really cool way to have kind of a relationship with information. And then all of a sudden, if I see somebody, I mean, the internet is full for everyone, doesn't matter who you are in the world. If you go to the internet and look for an idiot to criticize and to think about and to condemn, you'll find them. You'll find them, they are there. And the reason that you are finding them is not that the world is full of idiots. It's that the universe gives you exactly what you're looking for. And if you've got beliefs about people, opinions about a subject, it's going to attract to you opportunities to confirm what those beliefs are. And if you've also got beliefs about other people and how stupid they are or how wrong they are about this or how no one understands this concept, you're going to attract to you evidence that that's true too. And then you're going to feel really unpleasant. And then you're going to feel, you're going to attract even more of it. And it's just an interesting thing to really, it's like a new layer of responsibility for your creative process. Truly, everything about what it's like to be you. And as you begin to expand that sphere of awareness, you start to really realize how responsible you are for this experience, how much your response to the experience can change what the experience actually is. That's responsibility, right? And then you start exercising those choices consciously. You start saying, do I want to have an opinion about this? Not really. Oh man, what a relief. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden that relief is this value that you're offering to just the net energy kind of the universe. And then you start feeling the reward of that. And that's something too, just going back to the notion of, what were we talking about how people have to work hard or something? Oh, the millionaires and all this stuff on YouTube, or people who are just, doing their passion, actors and actresses and all this different stuff. And one thing for me that's been hugely profound is that you cannot criticize people's success and be successful yourself. It doesn't matter what your definition of success is, whether your definition of success mirrors theirs or not. You can't be critical of someone whose definition of success is to be a billionaire and then have the kind of success that you want, even if that success has got nothing to do with money at all. Criticism of success repels success, whatever success means for you. And it's just one of these things, like when it comes to rendering value, Value is not about the time that you put in. Rendering value is not about the effort that you put in either. It's just about the value that's rendered, and the value that's rendered, say, by your good feeling, or the value that you can provide people in the form of like content on Facebook or whatever. It really is about that, and in recognizing how valuable your good feeling is, how valuable it is. That you will not be rewarded financially, relationally, physically, in any way for anything other or more than you will be rewarded for systematically, consciously, and deliberately and intentionally improving what it's like to be you. Because there's no project in the world that is more valuable to the world than you improving what it's like to be you. That's why it's the highest paying thing in the world. And when we go out and from a bad feeling place start trying to right the wrong, start trying to fix the world, and we don't start in the most obvious place. It's the most obvious thing, what it's like to be me. I'm a part of reality, and I'd like to enhance reality. So, where am I going to start? Well, let me start here. I've got direct and immediate control. And then, just by your existence, your mere existence becomes this value-rendering action, and it really does start to elevate the quality of everything.
Yeah, and I love so much that view of like this organic life, because it's like, okay, so here you are, you're born into this world at this certain time period, and we've got a certain amount of research, and we've got a certain amount of, science that tells us this, this, and this, and it's like, okay, well, how am I going to choose how I want to live? Like, what makes the most sense to me? Because when I start evaluating it, I see that a lot of the things that I believe, a lot of the things that I've done in my life were kind of foisted upon me by other people, by other ideas, and a lot of them, when I analyze them for myself, they don't make sense to me. And the important thing is that, when you do something and it doesn't make sense to you, but you do it because someone else seemed to think it was a good idea, deemed that it was like the appropriate thing to do, but you personally can't understand it. And again, I think it is from this kind of world of, some things you just can't understand. You just have to, go along with it. Like, I don't buy that. And that's like, Terence McKenna, it's like, your understanding matters. Like, your experience of what your life is like and why you do the things you do, that matters so much, that you have a kind of cohesive philosophy for why you are living the way that you are living. Because so many people, we just adopt what we see, like you are an amalgamation of the people you've come into contact with, the schools that you went to, the movies that you've watched, like in this, you just kind of like cobbled together this life. And you find that you are doing things or engaging in things that you don't really have a reason for. You may come to a point in your life where you're like, gosh, this doesn't really make sense anymore. And so when it
things that don't improve what it's like to be you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, things, and I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could look at it, like things that you do that you just feel like you're supposed to do. And things that are more natural. It kind of gets back to the thing I was talking about at the beginning. You feel like you've got to do a lot of things that you don't like in order to build this life that you're supposed to like, but there's so many things that you feel compelled or like you have to do that's just a part of it. Like, it's like, oh, well, you're here, so you have to do like this list of crap. But I find for me, when you truly like look at nature and watching and observing the activities of nature and realizing that we ourselves are an outgrowth of nature. And that's, a lot of it comes down to your worldview, because if your worldview is that everything was all finished and then man got plopped here and you're like apart and separate from this earth, you're going to view it, you're going to live in a very different way than if you realize, or if you believe that you grew out of the earth, that you have evolved and you've come from a very long line of things, that their whole program is survival. It's what feels bad, what feels good. I'm going to go where what feels good. What's dangerous, what's safe, we're going to go with what's safe and what feels good. What's safe and what feels good is what got us evolved to where we are now. Is that true, just binary want, don't want. I want this, I don't want this. I want to live, I don't want to die. I want this, I don't want this. Like, literally, that, I really feel like it is as simple as that. And that's what we teach. One of the major premises of our self-understanding course is that moment to moment, what's going on in your mind is that at the level of thought. What are you thinking about right now in this moment? Is it what you want or what you don't want? Want, don't want, want, don't want. And the people that get the most out of life and enjoy the life the most and get most of the things that they're wanting are the people that follow evolution, which is what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? Given this, given this place that I live, given this, okay, here I'm a seed for a plant. Here I am. There's a lot of concrete around here, but I'm in a little bit of dirt, so I'm going to go ahead and grow. And where am I going to go? I'm going to grow towards the light because I want the light. And so I'm going to grow to, it's like, it's that, that is the driving force of what it is to be alive, is this drive for survival, this drive to keep going, to keep finding more of what I want. How can and I'm going to make more of these things that are me, which is just me living again through this other thing, through this seed, and they're going to choose what they want. But here we come along and we've evolved these minds to the point where we think we've got to start choosing stuff that we don't want in order to further evolve and to get further in our lives. We start choosing, oh, well, I don't want this, but it's going to get me something better. But that goes against our very nature. Like, all that we are is go after what you want, do what feels good, do what feels right, follow the sunshine, follow, like like the goose, it follows the seasons. It doesn't stay here and say, listen guys, it's gonna get cold, we're really gonna have to tough it out. They've got these wings, and so they fly and they go to where feels better. I think
it's that there's a certain point at which the mind started to realize the kind of polarity of implied opposites, and so we went from just going towards want to being like, oh, that's what I want. Okay, so what do I don't want? Oh, I don't want that. Oh man, that's bad. Well, oh, I don't want that either. And then you get so entranced with, especially through language, through growing up with people who worry all the time and who put a big emphasis on worry, we become so entranced by unwanted and what we don't want that we start giving so much attention to it that it proliferates in our experience. And see, the thing is, unwanted exists to be a foil for wanted. It exists so that the tension between unwanted and wanted can cause the physical universe to manifest, so that you have something out of which an experience can be made. You know what I mean? You can't just have all of one thing, all of one note. It's just this one experience that's just flatline. It's just, there's nothing to it. You got to have a wanted and an unwanted. You got to have a black and a white. You got to have an off and an on and up and a down. You got to have this polarity in order for this thing to go. Like you see, like a wave. There's no such thing as a wave that's all crest or all trough. You got to have up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And there's a certain point where you start getting fixated. So we develop our intellect. We develop our ability to think in this way. And so now we're clever. Well, we're smart enough to know that every wanted implies an unwanted, but we're not yet clever enough in all cases to say, well, yeah, that's true, but what I want is to give my attention to the wanted, so the wanted can come into my experience. And recognizing the conundrum, recognizing the situation that we are in, that we are capable of doing things that do not necessarily serve us, and saying and operating and living with just that awareness in mind. It's very possible for me to give my attention to what I do not want, to activate in me a vibration and a bad feeling that causes me to attract those things into my experience, and certainly causes me to create an experience of unwanted just by thinking about it. But that doesn't mean it's a good idea. What I want, even that contrast, even that unwanted, the unwanted experience of giving attention to unwanted and feeling bad implies a desired opposite, which is to give your attention to what is wanted and create a positive experience of good feeling that then attracts the actual physical wanted thing into your reality. And when you recognize that, there's such power in it, such freedom in it, because the responsible thing to do is also the thing that feels good to you, because feeling good is the most responsible thing you can do. And what this is not laziness. This is it's the end of vanity. It's humility. It's recognizing that you are an outgrowth of nature, that you weren't made, you grew, and recognizing also that your desires are an outgrowth of nature as well. Your desires are an outgrowth of you, and you are an outgrowth of nature. And you notice, like when you look at like the fiber in muscle, or the grain in wood, or you look at even the hair swirl, the hairs want to go a certain way. This thing that keeps on going is already going in a certain way. And the way of the artist is to say, I'm going to make my mark here. I'm not going to try to be passive. I'm not going to try to act like I didn't exist, because to act like you don't exist, or to try not to interfere at all in the going and the flowing of things, is to contradict the going and the flowing of things, because here you are, you're an active agent, you're doing your thing. So the thing is to be a part of it, but to not be does not feel that you are apart from it and then meddle in it in ways that don't make any sense. Notice the direction that things are already going. And guess what? Your desires are an example of that. When you feel things, go with the flow of what you're feeling. Go with the flow of what you're wanting. But when you say, oh, I can't have that. Oh, I don't believe that's okay. Oh, the religious group that I grew up in said that too much of that was a dangerous and bad thing. That's going against the grain. And going against the grain is not, we're talking about the energetic grain here. We're talking about the grain of your feeling. We're talking about the grain of your emotion, the grain of your guidance here. Going against that is not intelligent. It's not courage. It's not brave. It's not a valorous thing to do. It's an inefficient thing to do. It's a silly thing to do. It's a self-defeating thing to do. Because there are not demons within you to defeat. That's the thing to understand. There's not bad elements within you to stand up to and decapitate and stamp into the ground so that you can be victorious over yourself. How do you know the right self won? How do you know the right you won? Is it good I and bad me, or bad me and good I, or good me and bad I? It's all one thing. And when you recognize that, you start saying, okay, what is the grain? What is the pattern? Where's this whole thing going? That's the thing. Like for me, when I discover that I have a desire, it's the same thing as discovering that I've got treasure in my backyard. I've got a very valuable plant growing in my backyard. I've got a beautiful animal back there. It's a delight. Oh, here we go. This is the direction it's going. All of a sudden, Steve wants a Tesla. Steve wants this really cool. I found a really sweet modern home that I just love the way. Melissa's not that crazy about it, but I like it. I think I can influence her to come around to it. And it's this beautiful home, and it's in Bulgaria or something like that. But it's just stunning.
Moving to Bulgaria, guys.
Yeah. And I find this thing, and I like it. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, that's the direction my life is going. My life is going in the direction that this desire is taking me. I don't know if that means I'm going to move there, live in that house, if I'm going to have that house built here, somewhere here, whatever. The point is I'm feeling this desire. I'm trusting the desire. I'm not contradicting it. I'm just saying, here, I'm going with that flow. I'm going with that flow. And that's produced for me such amazing results in my work with other people. Back when I used to say, no, so you're doing this, and you need to do this other thing. If you'll just do this other thing, then everything will be fine. As soon as I started to say everyone that I'm working with is doing things exactly perfectly, so given that, what do we want? Go ahead and freak out. Go ahead and have anxiety. Go ahead and believe that I'm crazy and say, okay, given that, what do I want? Now let me get it for you. If a crazy guy can get the thing that you want for you, who cares if he's crazy or not? Maybe being sane is overrated. Just go with the flow. Just embrace what's going on. Just say, maybe all the things that I think are wrong with me, maybe they are wrong with me. And maybe having those things wrong with me are exactly what's going to allow me to get things right in my life. Maybe that is the key. And then you're all of a sudden just in this flow. Given this, what is wanted is just identifying that grain and being an artist who works with it. Like you look at the rock, that you're going to be doing this sculpture, and you see the sculpture before you even, chisel stuff away. What kind of sculpture does this rock want to be? What kind of life does this want to be? You ask yourself that question. Stop contradicting your own process, and you just say, what kind of life does this want to be? What kind of experience does this want to be? And you know the answer to those questions, and you'll start getting those answers very quickly when you ask yourself, and you don't contradict them. Wants to be free, wants to be loved, wants to have money, wants to have a lot of freedom, wants to have fun, wants to feel good, wants to live here, wants to do this thing, wants to help people, wants this, that, and the other thing. When you know those things, that's good. Go with those things. That's a signpost. You know what I'm saying? But as soon as you see the signpost and it says, yeah, where you want to go, it's over here, the first thing that you think to that is, oh, but what if it's wrong? What if that signpost is wrong? What if it's misleading me? What if some devil put that there to make me go the wrong way? Well, you're going to, if you encounter indefatigably accurate and reliable guidance, and in response to coming into contact with that guidance, you say to yourself, well, what if it's wrong? Well, then,
oh my gosh.
So we got some wasps in this fireplace, and I'm pleased that it's just as well that I had a feeling you were going to get out there. See, they were determined. They get these wasps that are in the fireplace. They want to come out, and one got out. It just kind of flew right by us.
I think it's just going to do its thing. It's not going to bother anybody, and we'll guide him outside.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna, with the power of our mind.
Yeah, but that...
must have been time for me to stop talking.
I guess so. That is anyone, any organization, any person that tells you to go against what feels right to you, that person is not to be trusted. And that is one of the big things. Because
they're not in alignment themselves, right?
Yeah, because there's so many people say, oh, well, you can't trust your feelings. Like, I was told that a lot growing up. Like, oh, well, you can't trust your feelings. Sometimes you'll feel like you want to, and that's the thing, like a lot of religious groups will tell you not to do this thing that's just like things that are so natural, that come more natural than anything else. Like a lot of like strict like rules about like reproduction, and like reproduction is one of the most, I mean, that is nature. That's nature at its most core is to reproduce, and things that put a lot of restrictions on when and how, and you know, you can't do it, and you've got to go, you know, you have to follow very strict rules. That is something that is, you know, it teaches you to distrust these natural things. And it's not that you can't guide, you know, your reproductive urges, or that there aren't good ideas or rules of thumb to stick to. It's more that you can't trust these innate things about you. And that's why I'm so passionate about teaching people about the 5 biological laws, because it shows you, because we think, and I think this is one of the most terrible things that we do to people, is get them to think that their bodies have turned on them. That my body that is me, like, I know that I experience myself behind my eyes looking out, but am I any less of my toe that I can move, that I know is a part of my body? Am I less that part because I don't experience myself looking out of that part? And if there's something wrong with a part of my body, I feel like, oh my goodness, you know, like something like cancer is, my body has turned on me, and now what's it trying to do? Is it trying to destroy me from the inside out? And that distrust of yourself, that's what that is that is deep distrust of yourself, of your own body. And I think that that is of such a destructive idea to have implemented in someone, that my body somehow has turned against me in this moment, and now I'm at war with myself. Even the whole notion of autoimmune disease, that oh, my body is so stupid that it doesn't realize that it's attacking me, and so I now have to, you know, take these drugs to suppress my immune system, because my immune system is hurting me by overreacting to something that, you know, is also me. And when you understand the 5 biological laws, you realize that that was all just a misunderstanding, that the body has known what it's doing all along, and it's responding truly to your emotional experience of your life. And that is what, you know, Dr. Hammer discovered, is that everything that your body is doing has a very specific reason that it's doing it. If you've got, you know, if you've got a colon tumor, your body experienced an indigestible conflict, and it said, okay, well, we need additional colon cells to help break down whatever this thing that we can't process is. Like, your body is always doing the right thing, it's just we haven't always understood it. And so to give someone this model for understanding that your body never turned on you, your body's always been on your side in ways that you could, at like the deepest, most core level that you don't even understand, your body has been on your side. And so when you realize that, wow, I can actually trust my body, I can actually trust my inclinations, I can trust my feelings, I can trust like that innate. And that's what I love, even like in the chiropractic philosophy, it's all about, you know, you've got this innate intelligence that's in every single cell of your body, and that you just want to let it do its thing, and you want to remove any interference from like the innate intelligence just kind of flowing and doing its thing, because the innate always knows what to do, because the innate built you. Like, the fact that you have a mind that you can discuss and think about ideas like this is a result of your body, of your innate intelligence doing what it does. And so when you start to distrust that, you start to distrust like the most fundamental part of who you are, which is your innate intelligence, which is like this thing that just keeps on going, this kind of amazing miracle of life that is within you. When you distrust that, you can't trust anything. I mean, who can you trust if you can't trust your own being? And
I think if you believe things like that, like for example, that your body it'll turn against you or whatever. The thing is, interesting thing about belief is that when you believe one thing, it precludes you from believing the opposite. By definition, you cannot believe one thing and then the opposite thing. So you're choosing one set of information, one set of thoughts to think over and over again over another one, and you're not going to think the other ones, you're going to think these, and you kind of hold your breath and go, and that's what you're doing. Okay, we're going all in, we're diving off the cliff of belief here. And when that happens, if you believe something that's not true, or more, if you believe something that's not resourceful, if you believe something that's not compatible with the kind of life experience that you want to create, whether it's my body is stupid and turns against me, or money is evil or hard to make, or women can't be trusted, or men are, I don't know, whatever it is, when you believe those things, you're going to do a lot of things that make a lot of sense given that belief, that would seem really dumb and stupid and obviously unresourceful if you didn't believe it. And that's that key thing. That's how very intelligent people, very worthy people, very deserving people, very capable people can do very unintelligent things. They're behaving rationally given the confines they've placed on their mind with the things that they have chosen, perhaps unconsciously, to believe. And I think that's that thing, is that what you believe has a lot of consequences, and the consequences manifest at so many different levels. I mean, at the level of your experience, at the level of your feeling, at the level of what you think about, at the level of how you behave, at the level of the actual physical reality that comes into your life experience. And as you begin to recognize that, you can be aware of that process and watch that process too. And it's one of those things too about that whole trusting your nature. You've got no choice but really to trust your nature, because it was like we were talking about with, what was it, when we made the course or whatever, and I was saying, did you make the choice to build that course? Like, at some point, did you have to just decide that you were going to do it? And you said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, but at some point, did you sit down and just consciously, deliberately decide to decide?
No.
And I think you claimed you did.
Yeah.
And then we had to get one back. And
Yeah,
I said, did you decide to decide to decide? And ultimately, even if you're going to be the one that gets it done, you're going to make those decisions. You're going to go out and hustle. You're going to go get things done. You're going to make those hard business choices. You're going to do all that work. Where are those decisions going to come from? And when are they going to come? And who's responsible for them coming? And when you recognize that, you recognize that actually, even if it is you, at some point, something's got to happen prior to you in order for those things to happen. And that's kind of the role of the grace. That's the Jiriki and the Zen tradition, this idea that there are things that you do, but there's also things that you really can't do. There's things that just have to happen. They happen of themselves. There's this suchness. There's this occurrence. And that is one of those things that kind of puts the ego and the tendency of the ego to conceive of itself as the only thing there is, which is a normal part of it. It's as much a part of that flowing stream and the grain of existence as every other part. So a lot of people are kind of really down on the ego, and that's kind of an effort to kind of compensate for the ego being really up on the ego. But you can get quite egoic about being down on the ego, because I'm more down on the ego than you are, you see, and so I know how bad it is more than you do, and that's an easy thing to get caught up in. But the basic idea is recognizing, and do this experiment with yourself. When you decide that you're going to do something, where did that decision come from? Did you decide to decide what you decided? And if so, how did you decide when to decide what you decided? You know, it's this interesting thing that ultimately this stuff's just kind of coming up. And when you recognize that, you're like, whew, man, even that sensation of being in control, of driving this ship, of moving this body around, of getting it right and making sure things happen, even that's just kind of coming up from I know not where. Man, maybe I can just sort of relax a little bit. Oh, that just kind of came up too. And then there's this release of unnecessary tension. And then you go from being like the person who's squinting, trying to make their eyes work better, to the person who relaxes. And you realize, man, the more I relax, the better my eyeballs see. That this unnecessary excess tension that I'm applying to things. I was thinking about this earlier. I think I maybe started to write something about it, but it's this basic idea. How much attention does it take for you to really manifest something in your reality? And it's only as much as it does. When you give your attention to your desire, you're giving exactly the right amount. It's like when I look across this room to see things, how much tension is required in my eyes to see the things I'm seeing? Well, just as much as I just look and it just calibrates it perfectly. But I don't need to apply additional tension. That's that interesting thing, that attention as a tension that we apply to things. Sometimes we think about them and we just want to, it's like there's some muscle somewhere in my body that I could tighten down on. And if I just tighten it enough, then everything I want will come to me. Then, everything will be fine. Then nobody will disagree with me, or if they do, I won't be injured by it. And it's recognizing that really it's about relaxing. And it's about, like, how your body just kind of has this tonus. It's got this muscle tone that just kind of keeps you from dissolving into a puddle of goo on the ground. It just kind of knows how to do it. Like, you do that, right? You maintain this physical form, this physical focus, but you don't really know how you do it. And the same thing will be true for your manifestations, too. It's one of these things that you're just going to do. You're not really quite sure how to describe it in words, in that linear thinking, because that's how the ego works, is that it says, well, when I do this, and then this, and then this. But really, to describe linearly the physiological things required for me to do this would take more time than has existed in the physical universe. If you had to write out everything that was going on. And when you recognize that, you're like, man, the vast majority of my creation is going on outside of the me that I normally experience myself to be. So I better just kind of relax. I better just kind of like let it flow. I better just kind of watch it, because I really have no other choice but to watch. There's really nothing else to do but to trust my body, but to trust the universe, but to trust the law of attraction, but to trust whatever it is that I'm trusting. Because if you don't trust those things, you got to trust your decision not to trust them. And where did that come from? Well, I trust reason, right? Well, but how did you know? How did you decide? How did you come to the decision to trust the thing that you did? Ultimately, you're kind of your own authority. And when you recognize that, you're just really free, because you stop being so arbitrary, and you stop trying to justify why you're doing the things that you're doing. You just start doing those things, and you'd be amazed at how beautifully you do you, and your experience of what it's like to be you, when you stop trying to justify it and base it on hard and immovable things and, unchanging things, and just recognize it's just this pattern. It's just this flowing. It's just this happening. It's just going on.
Yeah, and it's like transmuting all of this like negative emotion and tension and stress and fear and worry and strife and, panic that you have, and transmuting that and turning it into like this great peace and ease and relaxation and flow and trust and just relaxing. And that is really most of the coaching, the work is how can we get you feeling as good as you can possibly feel, and trust that that good feeling is the right thing for you to be feeling, that it's not putting your head in the sand, that it's not, just putting on the rose-colored glasses and trying to see things better, because that's what a lot of people, I think, when they like start down that road, or like they think that might be the right thing for them, but they don't know or not. So what they do is they say, well, they don't really give themselves fully over to it. But when you start to truly trust yourself to the water, when you realize that when you let go, you float, and when you watch the earth, the moon knows when to be where it's supposed to be. The sun, the earth and the seasons and the birds and the tree. Like if you just watch nature, you see that it's all in perfect time. Like how is this all in perfect time? I mean, did you do enough to earn the sun coming up so that the earth could be warmed and the food could grow? I mean, did you earn that? Did you do something to make that happen? Well, no, it just happens. You're like, oh, but we just take it for granted. But don't take that for granted. Like that's a part of all that who you are. And so if you see things going wrong in your life, in your career, in your body, in your relationships, it's like very often it's because there's just so much tension and so much you're trying to force something that's trying to flow, and you're just damming it up. And so when you just allow yourself to feel good and to follow that good feeling with your body, with your career, and you just kind of be like a child again, like with no worries, no fears, just delighting in what it is to be physical in a body, to touch dirt and to taste things and put things in your mouth, and to really be a kid in that sense is the true joy of adulthood, is being able to see your life through the eyes of a child who doesn't worry, who doesn't fear, who doesn't stress about stuff, who says, this is fun, this is fun. And when you start believing that what's fun for you and what feels good to you can also make you healthier than you could ever imagine and bring you all the money you could ever want, it's just this reversal of the belief system that we've been indoctrinated.
So you said put something in your mouth. I bit a small stick as I was walking around talking to somebody on the telephone. I talk when I'm on the phone with my clients, and I had this thing. And
you talk when you're on the phone with your clients?
Is that what I said? Yeah. I walk when I'm on the phone. I talk too sometimes. And I found myself I just kind of like bit on this stick because I was just wondering like what the texture of that thing would be like. And I was like, that's actually. I was like, what am I doing? This is kind of weird. But I was like, no, I mean, this is kind of walking around having a sensory experience, and you get so in that zone that you forget that you're supposed to be an adult. You know what I mean? And the only little kids do that. But go out, put your hands in the grass and recognize, I guess, that your experience matters. That's the whole thing. People who are critical of the whole, you're just sticking your head in the sand. It's time for you to go around and feel good. Well, it wouldn't make sense if your experience didn't matter. We said before, beliefs have consequences. As soon as you start believing that what it's like to be you is a significant element of your creative process, you'll start doing things that don't make sense to people who believe that how you feel doesn't matter. They'll say, why are you doing that? Why are you being so passive? Why aren't you doing this, that, the other thing? You know what I'm saying? Why aren't you upset about this? And you say, because being upset is contrary to the intentions that I have in this life experience. And you say, well, I want to create what I consider to be good. And for me, a very important part of that is feeling really good. And if you explain that to the person, they'll say, they don't like that, right? Because some people don't like to hear things that kind of contradict their worldview. But it will make sense to them that you're doing what you're doing when they understand kind of why you're doing it. And just recognizing that's a very powerful thing. And it's about improving how you feel. It does not matter what you do. It really doesn't. And what that means is that if you start the process of deciding from the point of considering an action, and that doesn't feel good to you, there's some action that I've got to pinpoint. That's the important thing. How do I have to think and feel to get that action? Because the action's important. That particular strategy does not work for generating the actions that may be necessary for the manifestation of what you want. The way that works is to give your attention to the good feeling. To give your attention to the good feeling and give your attention then to how good it is that you got that good feeling going If an action is important enough to really play a role in your creative process, then you better find a way of feeling good enough to let that action manifest of its own, because you'll ruin it if you go to it and you try to force it because you think you need it. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're trying to go on a date with somebody and you're like, listen, I really need this to work out. I mean, what a weird, you know what I'm saying? Is what an off-putting thing. The stuff that you want, whether it's an action, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a manifestation, it won't come to you if you're in that kind of needy place. It's all about improving what it's like to be you. It's all about jumping off that cliff of, I am all in on enhancing my life experience. I'm all in on discovering my own process, falling in love with my own creation, finding out how to be more in alignment with me, more caught up with me, more feeling good about me. That's what I'm doing, and I don't need to know in advance what's going to come of that in order for me to do that. That's the leap of faith. I mean, faith is really about that. Is I'm going to go in the direction of the direction that I'm going, and I'm going to just trust where that's going to take me. And the people who do that are the people who free fall so beautifully, and the people who are rewarded so handsomely, because everyone else looks at them and says, oh my God, look how amazing they are. Look what they're doing. Yeah, they're not contradicting themselves. That's all they're doing. And everybody is beautiful when they're not contradicting themselves, and they're just actually flowing forth in an unforced and an unefforted and an unblocked and an uncontrived manner. They're just being, and it's just like flowers. I mean, flowers are beautiful not because they're flowers. They're beautiful because they just do their thing. They just bloom, and they don't really worry about it. You know, if I was a flower and I was like really concerned about getting more bees than the guy next to me, I mean, it's just not how it works in nature. It all just kind of happens of itself. And when you let yourself, that's what transcending kind of the ego is really all about. Let yourself flower in that way. Let yourself just embrace that suchness, and embrace the fact that the part of you that experiences yourself as I is here to kind of go along with the ride. It's not here to make sure that things go the right way and make sure that, you know, we got to correct this and fix this and adjust this and calibrate these things and all that different stuff. If you do those things sometimes and it comes up naturally, that's a beautiful and that's a great thing. But it's that it's that, you know, that part that's like, I think there's something I should be doing, and I think I need to think about what that thing is, and I think I should have spent more time thinking about what I thought I should be doing before. That's the part where it kind of gets turned in on itself. And when you just let the stuff bubble up and you just say, boy, I'm being really neurotic right now, I guess that's just kind of part of my process. That is the cessation of neuroticism right there, right? The allowing, the accepting of whatever's going on is the end of the negative experience of that thing.
Yeah, there are a couple of things like that needing to do something, like you said, the good feeling will bring that up. Like you will end up doing things that are good for you as a result of that, you feeling good first. And I see this a lot in trying to, you know, kind of expose people to this new idea with the 5 biological laws and this different way to think about your cancer. And you go on these forums and people like post, I've got this kind of cancer, what do I do? And it's like, take this supplement, iodine and B17, and you got to do cannabis, and you got to do this, and you haven't done this, and you better cut out sugar, and you better stop all dairy, and you better stop. And I'm just like, you know, and that was me before too. Like I had a huge list of things to start doing and things to stop doing, and this is going to be the key to your body, you know, to stop making this cancer. But it's when you're realizing that it's your emotional response, it's you and how you're having an experience. Your body is in a state either of healing and you're not aware of it, or your body is in a state of a conflict and it thinks that it needs to be preparing for some type of, you know, potential catastrophe if it's not ready. And so to tell someone that, like, well, all you have to do is, you can do all that stuff too if that feels good to you, but you don't have to do anything, any of it. Really, the thing that you would do well to see is that your body is already doing exactly what it's supposed to do. You just haven't been seeing it in that light before.
Let's give you a way to organize your experience, and that's what I do in the course. Is that when I originally built that course, I had this idea in mind that it was going to be a way to let you organize your experience of what it's like to be you. The beautiful thing about organizing things, especially when you've got wonderful tools at your disposal, when you've got everything that you need and you're sufficient and you're worthy just as you are, when you organize this stuff, it becomes so obvious that you're sufficient and worthy and powerful just as you are. It's because of the fact that we have this disorganized experience of our experience that it's possible to feel so disempowered. I mean, you got power tools laying all over the place on top of each other. You can't find the one you're looking for, and you need this belief and you need that thought right now, and it would have been really handy to think that, but I didn't think about it because I had all these other negative thoughts in the way. And it's like, if I can get you to just kind of start organizing your experience, give you a simple framework, give you 7 steps, it's 10, I mean, it takes people like 5 years to go through the course, but it's a simple framework, and it gets really, I mean, it's as simple as you want and also as deep as you want. And let's just give you a way of relating to this thing called what it's like to be be you, that gives you awareness, responsibility, and the capacity for conscious choice, so that you can start choosing things that serve you. And that is like functionally, that's being in alignment. It's choosing alignment. It's choosing to feel good. It's choosing to attract the stuff that you want. It's choosing to respond to the choice that you just made that you're not happy about in a way that will make you happy about the choice that you're making now, about that choice you weren't happy about. It's just this infinite and ultimate and unending freedom, this pattern level, this collection of principles that really is all about that, which is to say, it's nothing wrong with people out there. It's not wrong when people are out there saying, hey, cannabis oil is good for you or it will help you. What is needed, though, is I think a way to relate to a sea of leading edge thought and information that allows you to use it and not be used by it. That allows you to benefit from it rather than sort of, being victimized by it or feeling oppressed by it. And so that's really what it's all about. I mean, it all is about just getting you in touch with the freedom that has always been available to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Cheryl, with something like cancer, do we need to settle the conflict so the body stops having the symptoms? Well, the thing is a lot of the time, the symptoms don't start until the conflict is already resolved. If you watch the GNM 101 video, you'll kind of get a better understanding of when symptoms arise. But cancer either forms during conflict activity, when if it's of endodermal derived tissue, which is a certain part of the embryo that forms. There are certain tissues that form from endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm. The endoderm and the part of the mesoderm, it builds during conflict activity. So that's when extra cells are being built during the conflict itself. And then when you resolve the conflict, the moment the conflict is resolved, the body stops making the cancer cells because you no longer need them. And then the healing phase is the body breaking down those cancer cells, or for ectodermal and some mesodermal derived tissues, during conflict activity, there is erosion of tissue. So say the breast ducts, during a separation conflict, the breast ducts are eroding and getting wider. And then when you resolve that conflict, cells come in to build, basically it's a healing scab. So those cancers are considered healing cancers because they're forming in response, because there's tissue adaptation always during conflict activity. When the conflict is resolved, then the body goes to work to restore the tissue to its pre-conflict state, either in breaking down or building up. And so that's how you kind of understand that. But what I wanted to say about trusting yourself, and that's kind of like the ultimate here, is trusting yourself, trusting your instincts. Like, realize all the things that you're already trusting that you don't even have to think about. Realize how you're growing your hair. Realize how you're replacing skin cells. Realize how you're breathing and your, this oxygen is getting into your bloodstream and your food is digesting and you're doing all of this. It just happens to you. Even if you have a conversation with someone, reflect upon that conversation and think about if we had to write a script for what we were going to talk about on this video.
We should try to do that.
I mean, think about what that would be like. Every single word. Well, no, I just have to trust myself to get on here and to speak. And you can tell when someone is trying to control what they're trying to say, or you can tell, like kids and things, when they are kind of taught to not trust themselves, or they're cut off a lot and they stutter, they don't trust themselves to speak, to just kind of flow. And so see all of the points in your life that you're already trusting yourself, but you don't realize it because you take it for granted, and realize that these other things, you can start to take them for granted too. You can start to trust yourself and start taking it for granted that things are just going to work out for you and your body is functioning. So, yeah, Cheryl, I saw that. What if the conflict never gets resolved? That is when there is prolonged tissue adaptation, and that is where you can end up with a lot of complications, because your body was not made to stay in fight or flight for years and years and years and years and years and years. It's fight or flight. Its whole purpose is so that you can fight and overcome your opponent, or you can flee and get away. And that never lasted for, more than 24 hours in our evolutionary history. It's just we can, because of our capacity of mind and ego, we can mill over and stay conflict active with something for a very, very long time.
Misuse of imagination.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, great talk tonight, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. A couple of things, if you are interested in working with either or both of us, we have a really fun 5-week program that we are doing this for the first time. It's really exciting for us that we're going to be doing a 5-week mind mastery intensive program starting October 15th. And so if you're interested in that, please send us a message. We're limiting the group to 20 people, and so that's going to be really exciting. I'm also starting a self-healing support group where if you are, dealing with some type of health condition and you're learning about GNM and the 5 biological laws and you're interested in some different viewpoints and some emotional support, because a lot of it's conflict resolution. It's like, how do you feel about yourself? How are you devaluing yourself because of a diagnosis? There's so much emotionally to be healed for people.
And it's emotional support too. It's not let's make you feel better while whatever is going to happen is just going to take its course. It's helping you to feel the way you can to influence the course of things. And I think that's the profound difference, is that it's not coping, it's changing. It's a proactive thing. It's
really awesome.
Yeah.
So please send us a message if you have any questions or you need any support or you're interested in any of our programs. So
thanks so much. See you
have a great
soon.
night.